Hey guys, so in the Dragon's Blood series, we got to see a new side of Invoker, because the anime expands upon his backstory and revealed to us that Invoker and Selemene were once lovers, and even had a daughter called Filomina. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the relationship between Invoker, Selemene and Filomina. So without further ado, let's begin. Although the anime showed that Invoker and Selemene were once lovers, they didn't really explain how it all happened. So to explain this, I have to fill in the gaps with headcanons. So yeah, let's fire up the headcanons. I think Invoker and Selemene were elves, probably even Corial Tavi elves. Yes, the kind of elves that worship the goddess Mene. Why do I say this? Well, there are several reasons why I think this is the case. The first reason is pretty obvious, and that is that they look like elves, and have typical elf features like pointy ears and blonde hair. The second reason is language. You see, in the anime we are introduced to a new language of the elves.
She talks to you.
Fimrin? Yeah. About life, trees. You know, she has 87 words for Moonlight, none of which I can pronounce.
But we also see Mirana use some unknown language from time to time, which I think is also the Elven language.
Sagan. Chagu.
So how does Mirana, who is clearly a human princess, know the Elven language? I think Mirana learned the Elven language through Selemene, who is an elf herself. The third reason is that Invoker seems to be a follower of Mene, because we see a statue of Mene in his tower, and here he also prays to Mene.
To Mene's moon we pray, crescent light upon us all.
So Invoker and Selemene were probably Corial Tavi elves that originally worshipped Mene. Anyways, Invoker and Selemene have a daughter named Filomina, and this is probably why Way says this.
I take no joy in killing a father.
I'll talk about Filomena later on, but now let's talk about how Selemene became the goddess we know today. In the anime we see Selemene's character. She makes it super clear that she is a power freak, so being a worshipper of Mene wasn't enough for her, and she probably craved to see how it would feel to become a god and be worshipped. So she decides to be the goddess of the moon herself.
Why did Selemene do that?
Selemene wanted worship from the Corial Tavi, punished anyone who wouldn't call her goddess.
So I think she overthrew Mene and became a false god. She did this by attacking Mene during a lunar eclipse when Mene's powers were weakened.
1,000 years ago, deep in the night silver woods, the sun shut her eyes and the moon turned to blood.
Did it hurt?
It made her weak.
Mene, the goddess of the moon.
The night turned red and our goddess was trapped in shadow by Selemene.
Selemene, the dark moon goddess.
But what Selemene did with Mene is unknown, because we have two conflicting endings to this story from two different people. Filomena talks about a story that states that Mene lives in these lotuses.
You see, Mene left a gift for us in the temple, her magical lotuses. So when he lays the flowers on the earth, she will return. Our true goddess left this world, but every day we worship Mene, so one day she'll come back to us.
And if this is true, Selemene have trapped Mene in these lotuses, but Invoker says that Mene is dead.
Our true goddess lives in these lotuses. Mene lives in them. Please take them. Bring her back.
Stories are stories. Dead is dead. No one can change that.
So I'm not sure what to make of this, but one thing is for certain, and that is after Selemene usurped the god status from Mene, most of the elves refused to follow her, which is why Selemene banished all of the elves.
Selemene banished anyone who wouldn't pray to her, far from our home in the Night Silver Woods, into the darkest corners of the world.
But some elves, they did say their prayers to her, to Selemene.
Yes, some did. Some still do.
This would explain why most of Selemene's followers are actually humans like Luna and Mirana, and not elves like Fimrin, because the elves know what Selemene did to their goddess Mene. This would also explain why the temple is called the Temple of Mene and not the Temple of Selemene. But anyways, after Selemene became a goddess, and being the power freak that she is, she probably abused her power to start enslaving people to follow her like shown here, because the elves already left her. Invoker probably helped Selemene become a god, but I'm not so sure about that. But Invoker saw what happened to Selemene when she got all that power. So Invoker probably started regretting helping Selemene to rise to power. And because of this, Invoker takes their daughter Filomina and takes her far away from her crazed mother. But little did Invoker know that it was too late for his daughter, because Selemene seems to have infected Filomina. This purple infection is the same as the infection shown here. I think this infection prevents followers from getting away, because it seems to worsen if you have reduced faith in Selemene like shown here. And in Filomina's case, it worsens with the distance between Selemene and Filomina. So why did Selemene infect her own daughter? I think this is because the only person that Selemene ever really cared about was the Invoker.
You abandoned me.
I abandoned you.
But I am a gracious goddess. I forgive you.
But she didn't want to keep him near by infecting him like the others, because she probably loved him too much for that. So she instead infected Filomena, knowing that Invoker will return eventually to cure his daughter. Invoker knew about this, and he tried everything in his power to cure his daughter, but nothing worked. And then this happens.
The disease has infected her blood.
Herbs, magic, none of our treatments are effective.
We have done everything, but death cannot be defeated. Nothing can change that.
I can. A god, perhaps. A mother.
Get out!
Invoker is angry here because he knows what Selemene did to their own daughter, but seeing that his daughter is in critical condition, he has no choice and decides to go back to Selemene, where this happens.
Filomena is ill. Beyond the care of healers, she needs help. Your help.
You took her because you refused to worship me. Now you return, begging me to save you.
Not me. Her.
In this scene, we see Invoker swearing his loyalty to Selemene to save his daughter. But Filomena refuses to worship her.
And you, child, speak the words.
No. I won't say them. Not my mother. Not my goddess. I love you. I won't worship you. I want my mother.
She probably says this because I think she knows that her mother never really loved her, and that her mother will only grow distant from her if Selemene keeps on trying to be a goddess. And because Filomena refuses to worship Selemene, Selemene leaves her to die. Filomena's death affects Selemene and Invoker in different ways. Although Selemene looks like she doesn't care for Filomena, I think she kinda regrets not saving Filomena. And I think this is the reason why she fosters her followers like Mirana and Luna. But at the same time, she hates Filomena and refuses to forgive her. This is because her death caused Invoker to grow resentful and hate Selemene for killing their daughter.
Do you forgive her?
Don't.
I watched helplessly as a child, our child, wilted away.
Please, it is done.
And because of this, Invoker wants to take revenge on Selemene, and that's why he makes a deal with Terrorblade. The reason why he doesn't do this himself is either because he's not powerful enough to kill a goddess, or because he cannot kill his lover himself. Because we see here that he tries to make peace with Selemene before attacking her.
The elves rise. A secret army, an elven legion emerging from every enclave in the world. And I have the lotuses.
Can't. You wouldn't.
You wouldn't save her. And you can't save yourself.
Anyways, Invoker sets Terrorblade free from his foul-fell prison. This is another case of law alteration, because Terrorblade's law doesn't say anything about somebody setting him free, and it says that he busted himself out of prison. I always thought that if Foulfell is the hell of hells, surely it must be harder to get out, but the way that Terrorblade's law states that he escaped on his own makes it sound almost too easy, but the anime shows that he had some help getting out of Foulfell, which makes his escape make much more sense. Terrorblade agrees to help Invoker on one condition. He mentions this condition here.
7 souls for 1.
In this contract, the 1 soul refers to Selemene's soul, and the 7 souls refer to the 7 souls of the Eldworms. This is why we see Invoker capturing the Eldworm Lyrak in this scene, and why he asks Fimrin to bring Davion after his battle is done, because then he can also capture Lyrak to pay Terrorblade with the Eldworm souls.
When you are finished, return the Dragonite to me.
This would explain why he knows all about the 8 Eldworms and the 8 pillars of existence, because that is what Terrorblade is collecting to become this powerful being that can remake the world in his image. Speaking of power, do you want to know why Selemene forcefully gets love from her followers like shown here? Well, that is because she is afraid that she will lose her god status, because here Terrorblade says what happens to a god who gets no worship or love.
Do you know what a demon calls a god who does not know worship? A god who does not know love, food.
Invoker knows that Selemene is scared of losing her god status, so he uses the prophecy to scare Selemene. And because she is scared, she panics and accepts Invoker's conditions and opens the chest with the lotuses of Mene, which is exactly what Invoker wanted, because when the chest opens, it causes the moon to eclipse and cuts off Selemene's power over her followers. I say this because we see Dryce's prison circle shutting down when this happens, and Luna says she cannot feel Selemene anymore.
I can't feel the goddess.
This marks the beginning of the battle shown in the Dark Moon event. Yes, the last episode of this series actually shows the Dark Moon event, and the ones who attack Selemene's temple are the elves that are hypnotized by Terrorblade, because here we see him take control over the elves and makes them fight against the Dark Moon Order, leaving Selemene unguarded. And then Terrorblade fights Selemene, who is now weakened because of the eclipse, and Terrorblade almost kills Selemene. However, Terrorblade doesn't kill Selemene, and I think this is because it's part of the contract, because after Terrorblade leaves, Invoker appears and says this to the helpless Selemene.
Do you love me?
This is a reference to the fact that Selemene did the same to Invoker in this scene when he was helpless.
Do you love me?
This also explains why Invoker is the main boss of the Dark Moon event and why we don't see Selemene in the game mode, because we play as the Dark Moon Order, and the Dark Moon Order is too busy fighting the elves that are hypnotized by Terrorblade. So basically, while we are playing the game mode, Selemene was getting beaten up by Terrorblade. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Anyways, back to Selemene. So why does Invoker keep Selemene alive? Maybe he keeps her alive to bring back Filomina or something, because she does say something about a soul returning to the material plane after dying to the infection.
1,000 years, and these people still don't know who you really are.
Her soul has already returned to the material plane. She will have no memory of this and know only renewed, intense love for me. I don't see the harm.
Maybe bringing back Filomena also includes those flowers that Filomena reads about, because they wouldn't have given those flowers that much screen time if they weren't that important. Maybe we'll see them in action in the next season. But either way, I'm pretty sure that Invoker has a plan. But we can be sure of one thing, and that is that this series shows how Invoker became the egomaniac we know today. I really like this story's complete turnaround, because if you compare the beginning and the end of the series, the story basically flips over. I'm talking about who is the evil one, who is the powerful one, and what's the source of that said power, how the powerful one basically scares the weaker one by threatening the thing that the weaker one cares about the most into getting what the stronger one wants, and the weaker one finally failing to hold on to what they love. So does this mean Selemene loses her godlike status? It must be the case, right? Because Invoker lost what he loved the most. Well, I don't think Selemene dies, because we still have references to Selemene in-game in the Battle of the Ancients, which chronologically happens after this series. So maybe she does survive here, meaning she didn't lose what she cares about the most, which is her power and the godlike status. So if they follow this format of turning around everything, Invoker might have a chance to get his daughter back. I guess we'll get our answers when the second or the third season comes out. Invoker's change from a loving father to a resentful egomaniac is also a reference to the fact that back in Dota 1, Invoker used to be a sentinel, aka a radiant hero, who later became a scourge, aka a dire hero. A neat little thing about this is that in his Dota 1 lore, it does say that his people, the Blood Elves, were scattered across the world. And if I'm correct about Invoker being one of the Corial Elves, they are also scattered around the world because of Selemene banishing them. So in this case, the Corial Elves are the Blood Elves of Warcraft 3. With all this new lore being added around Invoker, I'm pretty sure that we'll get some new voice lines from Invoker referring to all these things very soon, because he has no voice lines towards any of the heroes in game. So he has no relations with the other heroes of the game, he's immortal, and his lore is very vague. I think these are the factors that allowed them to easily build upon his story in the anime. Well, that's it for this video, guys. So what do you guys think? Do you guys also think that Selemene got what she deserves and the egomaniac personality that Invoker has in game is justified? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also guys, in the next video I'm going to talk about the 8 Earthworms and the Pillars of Existence. So stay tuned for that. And as always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.